Wonder what that's about. Why is he bringing 7 people from Texas to Maryland? Anyone have any thoughts on that? You think they were just going to have some Texas barbecue down there? Get them some brisket? So do you think it's conceivable that Abrego Garcia, our Maryland father, was a member of the Maryland-based clique? Ah, right. So the lawyer's like Western clique, that's only in New York.
This woman came into court twice, getting a restraining order against him, saying he had beaten her, he had punched her in the eye, he had ripped her clothes off. What causes a young mother to do this? Her child was with her.
The Kilmar wife-beater Abrego Garcia case gets worse, and the Maryland man hoax crumbles. This is behind-the-scenes look at what happened at one of those domestic violence order of protection proceedings that occurred when Jennifer Vasquez, the wife of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this person right here, when she went into court and filed for an order of protection. Now, we talked about it yesterday. Our friend Andy NGO shared some details explaining that he discovered 2 cases where Kilmar Abrego Garcia was in domestic violence cases brought by his so-called wife, Jennifer Vasquez, against him. You see this one from 2020, this one from 2021, both pretty shocking because they told us this guy is an excellent father, always been there for our children and all sorts of things. Well, we learned more that the order of protection was filed, and we also read through the police report showing that there's a lot of gang-related activity, including a report and a gang field interview sheet that identified 3 people as being members of a gang that he was palling around with. One of the guys was not, so they let him go, but Kilmar was marked. In addition to all of that, we then got Fox News and our friend Bill Malugin posting the juicy details behind the order of protection, and big questions about this. Why wasn't this brought forward in any of the proceedings? What happened was, in fact, that Abrego Garcia's lawyers, many of them ACLU adjacent folks or CASA adjacent folks or union adjacent folks, all came in and told us this guy was like an innocent, loving father, said no criminal history, left out all of this stuff that might be relevant to a judge who's making a decision about it. Left it out intentionally because they're dishonest people. But here is what we actually learned. So the wife came in and filed this. Looks like it was at Prince George County Court, Upper Marlboro, and submitted this May 5th, 2021 with her signature right there. Says, all right, here's a petition for a protection order. Says, I told him, Abrego Kilmar, to give me his card to pay. He got angry, start insulting me. I only put a few of gas. Once leaving there, he pulled out like crazy. I started recording because I was scared of the way he was driving and because our 1-year-old was in the back seat. In the recording, you can hear him yelling, insulting me, driving extremely fast. On May 4th, 2021, she says, I was watching on my laptop and he yelled, turn it off! I told him I wasn't sleepy yet and he got angry and he reached over and he threw my laptop on the floor and the baby started to cry because he was putting pressure on him. And my immediate reaction was to push him off of us. And then he punched, scratched me on my left eye, leaving me bleeding. That same day at 2 p.m., he came home to say he was going out with a friend. And I told him I needed to go pick up some orders at BJ's. And he got angry and started yelling again to the point that he ripped my shorts and shirt off. And I ran to the bathroom and he ran behind me, grabbed me by my arm. I have marks on my left arm as well. He then left, came home at 12 p.m. I left my car parked in the neighborhood. And in the morning, I asked him for the key and said he wasn't going to give it to me because he had things to do. I order Uber to leave with my kids because scared of him. Minutes later, he called that our car wasn't there anymore. At this point, I am afraid to be close to him. I have multiple photos and videos of how violent he can be and all the bruises he has left me. The children's with me. Wow. And this is who the Democrats are fighting for, going down there to get him out of custody. They want him back in our country. Multiple photos and pictures. I wonder if those are part of the court record anywhere. That doesn't sound like a loving husband, loving father, loving kid, loving to the children. In fact, some of those things might be actual crimes, right? I mean, in very serious crimes. Like this driving stuff with a kid in the car, you could call that reckless driving, which would be in Arizona misdemeanor, or you could call it reckless endangerment if you got a kid in the car, which could be a felony, and that could get real bad pretty quickly. Now, she doesn't want to call the police, right? And by the way, all of these physical altercations, those are all assaults. Bleeding, permanent injury, stuff like that, those are felonies. So these could all be crimes. She could have called the police and reported all of these. She didn't because he's illegal. And if that would have happened, there would have been a problem. So every time they come back and they're like, he hasn't been charged with a crime. Yeah, because he's committing crimes and nobody's reporting them. That's the point. Should be crimes. There's evidence of multiple crimes here. If she would have called the cops that time that happened, he would would have been arrested instantly, obviously, instantly. So don't let that stupid little phrase that they like to drag out, he's never been convicted of anything. His wife should have called twice because she got violently attacked by him, according to her own words. Only allegations, but no wonder, he didn't want to interface with the law. No wonder when he got those traffic tickets and those cops didn't arrest him immediately like they should have and deported him back then. Every time he missed his traffic ticket case, should have rounded him up and gone, because then this happens. And now this woman, I don't know what her situation is, man. She's got 3 kids. She's got all this pressure coming down upon her from CASA and all the things. It's hard to dunk on her too much. She seems like she has no idea what the hell's going on, quite frankly, and is just a useful pawn at the moment. But she was attacked by this dude. And I hope people spread this far and wide, right? Because they use this a lot. They say, he's never been convicted of any crime. He should have. He should be in jail, obviously, for beating women. This was just one incident. Don't know how the other one was. And she didn't file, orders of protections for all of the other beatings that have occurred. I have multiple photos and videos of how violent he can be and all the bruises he has left me. Probably not just from this one incident, probably from many other incidents where he's beating the hell out of her. So that's what they're throwing all their eggs in on. Wild scene. Here's what Jennifer wrote on page 2. Said, person I want protected is me. There are additional persons living at the home. Here's another incident. Prior injuries. Look, December 2019, like she didn't file anything. And what happens a lot in these orders of protections is it's like it has to be within a year. Like, when was the injury? Was it 5 years ago? Okay, well, I'm not going to issue an order for that. But they want to know about prior history. So he's got a bunch of it. December 2019, November 2020, he hit me with his work boot. Yeah, just like a chakla, right? Is that what they call it? August 2020, hit me in the eye, leaving me with a purple eye, black eye, right to the face, just like backhand Doug Emhoff. Multiple rounds. I want the court to order the respondent to not talk to me, Jennifer Vasquez, not to go to the residence called Temple Hills MD, where the residence is, right? Don't go to her place of work. Don't go to her business. Don't try to contact or harass. Order protection granted. So what an amazing just immigrant who's coming to America to just be a part of the American dream and raise a family here. Rob, you bigot. Yeah, that's great. That's what we want more of in our country. We're really glad to see that there are senators going down there to drag his butt back to America. Well done. So in addition to that, we can see that there's another report that got dropped from the Tennessee Star, and they're telling us, wow, go figure, that Biden's FBI ordered the Tennessee Highway Patrol to release this dude after he was detained, after he was in those incidents beating his wife in 2022 in a traffic stop on suspicion of human trafficking. Wow. Human trafficking too, in addition to beating his wife and hanging out at Home Depots with gang members. The Tennessee Star learned on Wednesday that Kilmar wife-beater Garcia, an alleged member of a Central American gang who was deported under Trump, was suspected of being engaged in human trafficking by the Tennessee Highway Patrol. Incredible. Officers detained him on December 2022, leading the THP to contact the FBI for guidance. So Tennessee stops the dude. Then they call the FBI, saying within 2 hours, the FBI ultimately requested that the THP release Garcia and the passengers in his vehicle. Christopher Wray's like, oh, it's an illegal MS-13 gang member? That's cool. Well, he's not a J6er, right? Was he there at the Capitol? No, he wasn't. All right. Does he have any strong opinions on abortion? No. All right. Does he plan to go to any school meetings to protest on behalf of kids or anything like that? No. Okay, you can let him go. That's fine. Within 2 hours, the FBI ultimately requested that they be released, and they let him go. There better be records about this. Like, there's something better be called, documented, something. The Star learned from sources familiar with the incident that Abrego Garcia was stopped for an unknown reason on December 6, 2022, and that Tennessee officers responsible for the stop discovered he was transporting 7 passengers with 8 people inside the vehicle. There was a 2-hour traffic stop. They determined that he was operating the vehicle without a driver's license and began searching for information on him. One source told the Star that they ultimately discovered that Abrego Garcia was on a terrorist watch list, but they could not locate him on a deportation list. Another source told the Star that Tennessee did not discover Abrego on a terrorist watch list, but that another one of the 7 passengers may have been on a terror watch list. Okay, so some incongruities there. Now, the Tennessee said that they called FBI, which was then led by Wray, and the FBI instructed them photograph them and document the contents of the vehicle. One of the photographs were captured. This source told the Star that the FBI requested that they release. Once the photographs were done, let him go. They let him go. The Star also learned that circumstances of the stop made the officer responsible for the stop, but that Abrego and his passengers were released at the request of the FBI. He's like, I gave up jurisdiction. Information about this incident, including the identity of of the THP officer, the officer's badge number, and the CAD, the computer-aided dispatch report, code assigned to the incident are all known to the star. So there is a record, which is currently withholding this information. So they got it. Sources familiar with the computer dispatch of the incident told the Star that the officer who filed the report confirmed the 7 individuals in the van were being transported to Texas from Texas to Maryland by Garcia. I wonder what that's about. Why is he bringing 7 people from Texas to Maryland? Anyone have any thoughts on that? You think they were just going to have some Texas barbecue down there? Get them some brisket down in Texas? Now, notably, it is a misdemeanor offense in the state of Texas to operate a motor vehicle without a driver's license. Anyone convicted of that can go to 6 months in jail. The officer who detained Garcia temporarily is well respected within the Tennessee Highway Department, has served on a special interdiction team, and is based in a district located between Nashville and Knoxville. In response to Wednesday's press inquiries, Tennessee and Homeland both confirmed that they got the communication and that they would send responses soon. A comment request by the Star to the FBI was not answered. The Star also contacted Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, kind of like the state, feds, as the chief authority over human trafficking to determine whether he was released due to a TBI investigation. Still waiting on answers there. Homeland also waiting on answers. He was granted a withholding of removal order. He was deported. Bukele said more. So Bukele said, we're not fond of releasing terrorists into our country, and so he's not getting out. So there is so much more on this dude that is going to be coming out, and we're looking forward to exposing that here. For some reason, the Democrats continue to love the dude. Now, Andy NGO is here. Says, Jennifer Vasquez Sura says the wife of deported El Salvadorian Kilmar Abrego Garcia claims to the media and fundraising campaign that Mr. Garcia is an amazing husband and father, but they don't have 3 kids together. Mr. Garcia is the father of the youngest child only, and other children have a father named Edwin Trejo Ramos, and he attempted, the other dad, desperately to get his kids back in 2018. Andy says, since I revealed the court history of documented alleged serial abusive violent behavior by Garcia and his wife, I've looked further into the records in Maryland. Mr. Ramos, the father of the other children, petitioned the court for emergency custody, but the case was dismissed because of lack of jurisdiction, likely because Vasquez was not served with the claim. Nothing was refiled, so she's got another baby daddy. Miss Vasquez Sura claims Mr. Garcia is a great husband, whilst hundreds of thousands of dollars pour into the campaign, and Democrats are saying, bring this dude back so he can beat his wife again. And here was another document from Andy. Yeah, okay, so here's the case in the claim against Jennifer to get those other kids back, probably because that dad doesn't want them involved in MS-13, can understand that, so that's not good. So we also saw some very interesting posts here from our friend Will Chamberlain. He says, here's another tell-all story about what's really going on here and how Kilmar's lawyers are playing loose with the rules. He says, I want to explain what happened with this other attorney here called this guy. He says, this guy's lawyer is called Simon Sandoval Moschenberg, and it's saying this guy is essentially duping the courts. Here's what he breaks down. It says, today, Bondi released the Gangfield interview sheet. It says the police officer says that when Garcia was arrested, he was hanging out with multiple MS-13 members. He was wearing apparel associated with them, and that a confidential source said, yep, that's him. But when Judge Thacker wrote her concurring opinion on the decision, she was extremely dismissive of that. She said the evidence was thin, to say the least. Made no mention of the fact that Garcia was detained hanging out with MS-13 or more, right? Why was that omitted? He says, let's take a look at her footnotes. They say, even then, the government's evidence of any connection between Abrego was thin. The claim was based on Abrego wearing a Chicago Bulls hat, no, and a vague uncorroborated allegation about a Western clique. But her first footnote points to another filing from the lawyer or from the district court, and that opinion by Zinnis, right? So you see how this works, right? There's a poison pill somewhere, and then everybody latches onto that and takes it and exploits that. So the Court of Appeals was latching onto something Zinnis wrote. Zinnis also characterizes the evidence as weak. It's just a Bulls hat, but there was no mention from her of the fact that he was arrested with 2 MS-13 members. Just forgot about it. Zinnis cited another document in her document. Okay, so now, this is what I'm talking about. This dude's like Rain Man, connecting all the documents. He says, look, ECF number 31 is what she cited, but that's citing the very document that she was writing. So it's circular. So the clerk made an error, which means we don't know where the judge got this, right? That's what we ask all the time. Like even in this Court of Appeals decision that we just read, the judge is saying things, making claims without citing your sources. So this Chicago Bulls thing, right? That's not what it ever was. Where'd you get it from, Judge? ECF number 31, that's the electronic court filing. So that's like what file it was on the docket. So citing 31, that's that document. So you can't circularly cite your own rules. Says, so then Thacker's second footnote points to the addendum to the motion, which is the complaint that was written by the lawyer. So now things become clear, right? The reason that Zinnis and Thacker underplayed MS-13 evidence is because Sandoval Moschenberg, the lawyer, did so. He's the only lawyer on the brief. No one else is responsible for it. Very interesting interesting here. Pretty clear he knew about that, but he didn't put the report in the record. He chose to underplay the cop's statement, and so as a result, everybody got blindsided, right? Judge Zinnis, Fourth Circuit, everybody on this case, they realized, like, they're all having a second thought about this case. And they're not going to admit it, but they are. They're going, oh, dang it. He's not this loving, innocent person. And there's a question about this lawyer, right, duping them. He didn't put it in the report. They got blindsided. Judges don't like that. Yeah, they like to be able to rely on the lawyers litigating in front of them to cut square corners. That didn't happen here. So the lesson for them in the media, you can't take their words as gospel, right? They're dressing up their clients. Complaints are at evidence. Really dumb to underplay this stuff. So it's a good thread from our friend Will. And he said he also wants to point this out. One of the key parts of the gang file was the assertion of a confidential informant and this Western click thing. He had a rank, he had moniker. That's pretty definitive, right? Garcia, he had a nickname. He had Chiqueo. He had a moniker of Chele. Like, he was in it. So how did Sandoval deal with that? Well, he asserted without equivocation that Western's click operates in New York, Brentwood, Long Island. And he says he's never even been to New York. And they both cite to that, right? They say, oh, well, they're in New York. But given how fast and loose he was with the other rules, he says when you search Western click on the DOJ website, all that comes up is one particular MS-13 double murder. But there's no claim by the DOJ here that the Western click operates only in Long Island. It's just that there were some people who were murdered in Long Island. But in the course of Will's research, I tracked down a major RICO indictment of MS-13 members from the United States and the District of Columbia. So they're also in DC. Oh, and guess what? As of at least 2011, the Western click is one of the 6 major MS-13 clicks operating in the DC metro area from other criminal charges. This was also echoed in Insight Crime, where the Western Locos click is in Maryland. So do you think it's conceivable that Abrego Garcia, our Maryland father, was a member of the Maryland-based click? Ah, right. So the lawyer's like, Western click, that's only in New York. No, it's not true. Western Locos click is in Maryland, right? Little dishonest. If I were the lawyer, I would be profusely apologizing to the court next time I show up. They were very aggressive with this, right? These lawyers. Well, the cop was fired and all this stuff, and the cop, like all these claims that everything is explainable. It's not. The dude was investigated for human trafficking, bringing some amigos out from Texas up into Maryland. How convenient was that? Stopped and let go by the very Biden administration, who you would expect to let them go because they're facilitating the invasion. And now the evidence, including the wife beating, is all coming clear. And these judges got some serious egg on their face right now. Here's what Pam Bondi said about this last night.
I want to put up on the screen a timeline because there seems to be, in the media especially, a narrative that is completely and totally and utterly false regarding, quote, Mr. Garcia. And not one but 2 courts actually said he was an MS-13 gang member and identified him as such. Can you please explain what you know about him?
Yeah, Sean, factually, this is an extremely disturbing case. And as a career prosecutor, it is even more disturbing. Every American tonight should be thanking Donald Trump for making America safer by getting this guy out of our country. I'm going to call him a terrorist because he has been designated as a member of a terrorist organization. So this illegal alien terrorist came into our country illegally in March of 2012. We know that because he admitted that when he was stopped in 2019 by the anti-gang squad. They stopped him at a Home Depot with 3 other members. And here's what's very important. He was wearing a sweatshirt with gang insignia on it. The guy he was with, another MS-13 known member, had a tattoo with very similar insignia on it. ICE declared him as a member of MS-13. The police officers, the gang unit, declared him as a member of MS-13. And also, they independently went to a reliable, confidential informant who said not only is he a member of MS-13, he gave them the clique, the Westerns, and he was called a Chiqueo, which is one of the higher-ranking MS-13 members. So they rightfully detained him. Rightfully. An immigration judge agreed. An appellate immigration judge agreed. Now here's where it gets even more frightening. In 2021, his girlfriend previously, his wife at the time, who he had married in jail after he'd gotten numerous tickets, didn't show up for court. He marries her in jail. She has a baby with him. And as a career domestic violence prosecutor too, I know it takes a lot for any woman to come into court and say they're a victim of domestic violence. This woman came into court twice, getting a restraining order against him, saying he had beaten her, he had punched her in the eye, he had ripped her clothes off. What causes a young mother to do this? Her child was with her. She talked about her child in the petition for an injunction for safety. Ultimately, she didn't show up for court. That left your typical domestic violence victim. But this victim was even braver because she was married to one of the top MS-13 members who was illegally in our country and a terrorist. So Sean, under Donald Trump's incredible plan to get these alien enemies, these terrorists out of our country, he is deported back to where he came from, El Salvador. He is sitting in a prison, and every American should be thanking President Trump tonight.
We do.
And every
Thank you, Mr.
liberal
President.
journalist who has called him a Maryland man and saying he was rightfully in this country should be apologizing tonight to President Trump.
Yeah, and it's pretty indicative of who they are as an ideology, on how they're just spring-loaded. They hate Trump so much that they call him somebody who's abusing a terrorist who wasn't abused at all. He just got deported out of our country. They just hate the man so much they can't even see what the outcome of that action was. They have to oppose him no matter what, and the idea that they would align themselves with foreign invaders and terrorists and human traffickers and more over the American constituencies that they serve is shocking, but that's who they are. Hopefully they keep it up.